No. Thank you. Goodbye.
Sit down and stay there until you're told to leave.
What if one of the most beloved courtroom comedies ever made had a mistake hidden in plain sight? One that fans only just discovered years later. My Cousin Vinny is packed with unforgettable moments, razor-sharp performances, and a legal accuracy that surprised even real-life lawyers. But behind the scenes, a handful of unexpected bloopers have sparked fresh debates, fan theories, and a renewed love for this classic film.
What? At what point did you shoot the clerk?
My Cousin Vinny has long held a special place in the world of film, not only as a comedy, but as a piece of pop culture that blends humor with a surprisingly accurate portrayal of the legal system. Released in 1992, it was a film that didn't initially appear destined for such long-lasting success. It didn't carry the typical weight of a major blockbuster, nor did it feature an ensemble cast of A-list celebrities. At least, not in the traditional sense. Yet, what it lacked in pre-made hype, it made up for with smart writing, unforgettable performances, and a tone that balanced the absurd with the intelligent in a way few comedies ever managed to do. Before we go any further, here's your reminder to subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on your daily doses of TV bloopers. At the center of the story is Vincent LaGuardia Gambini, a loud and somewhat unrefined character from Brooklyn who's suddenly tasked with defending his cousin and friend in a murder trial set deep in rural Alabama. The character, played by Joe Pesci, became iconic thanks to Pesci's performance, which walked the line between comedic exaggeration and believable charm. Pesci, known for his roles in much more serious films like Goodfellas and Raging Bull, managed to create a version of Vinny that was both ridiculous and competent. And that odd balance gave the film its unique tone. Alongside him, Marissa Tomei played Mona Lisa Vito, Vinny's sharp, stylish, and quick-witted fiancée. At first glance, her character may have appeared to be there purely for comic relief or romantic tension, but Mona Lisa's role turned out to be much more important. In one of the film's most memorable scenes, she delivers key testimony about car mechanics, surprising everyone in the courtroom and, more importantly, the audience. That scene not only showcased Tomei's acting skills, but also turned her character into a vital part of the narrative, leading to Tomei winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. While her win sparked some debate at the time, it has since been widely accepted as one of the highlights of the film's legacy. The courtroom setting provided fertile ground for both comedy and drama, and the script, written by Dale Lorna, made the most of this opportunity. Rather than leaning on absurd legal tricks or unrealistic plot twists, the story focused on procedure and logic, which was something rarely seen in courtroom comedies. That attention to detail has since been praised by legal professionals, with some law schools even using the film in their curriculum. It's been recognized by organizations such as the American Bar Association as one of the most accurate legal movies ever made. While it's still a work of fiction and takes some creative liberties, the film's foundation in genuine legal process gives it a layer of credibility that most comedies simply don't have. But there's more to My Cousin Vinny than just legal accuracy or clever dialogue. What's kept audiences coming back over the years is the dynamic between the characters, especially between Vinny and Mona Lisa. Their relationship is full of tension, affection, and mutual respect, all delivered through rapid-fire exchanges and sarcastic jabs that feel authentic and grounded in real emotion. Their chemistry is undeniable, and it provides a personal anchor in the midst of the courtroom chaos. The judge, played by Fred Gwynne, also deserves mention. Gwynne's portrayal of Judge Chamberlain Haller brings a stern, no-nonsense presence to the courtroom, acting as a perfect counterpoint to Vinny's brash and unorthodox methods. Gwynne, best known for earlier roles in television, gave one of his final and most memorable performances in this film. His calm, deep-voiced delivery created a character who was both intimidating and oddly endearing. The way he interacts with Vinny, clearly frustrated by the young lawyer's lack of experience, but ultimately fair in his judgments, adds to the overall believability of the story. Setting plays a crucial role as well. The contrast between New York and Alabama isn't just about geography, it represents a clash of cultures, expectations, and legal systems. Vinny's big city style sticks out in the small southern town, and his behavior frequently causes confusion or discomfort among the locals. This cultural mismatch provides many of the film's funniest moments, as Vinny tries to navigate everything from different breakfast foods to unfamiliar courtroom etiquette. The use of these cultural differences isn't heavy-handed, and the film never falls into outright mockery. Instead, it uses them as a way to highlight the absurdities of both sides, showing that misunderstanding often comes from ignorance rather than malice. But a film centered on a murder trial, My Cousin Vinny maintains a light tone throughout. The stakes are undeniably high. Two young men face the death penalty, but the film manages to keep the tension manageable by focusing on character-driven humor. Rather than relying on slapstick or over-the-top antics, the comedy arises naturally from the situations and the way the characters respond to them. Whether it's Vinny sleeping through a prison alarm, misinterpreting Southern slang, or getting into verbal sparring matches with witnesses, the humor always feels like a product of the story rather than something forced in for laughs. The script was particularly effective in giving each character their moment. Supporting roles, from the stuttering public defender to the gruff sheriff, all add to the film's texture. No one feels like a throwaway. Everyone has a purpose, whether it's to challenge Vinny, move the plot forward, or simply offer a moment of levity. It's this attention to the ensemble that helps elevate the film from a simple comedy to a well-rounded piece of storytelling. Interestingly, the film's slow build over the years from moderate success to cult classic is largely thanks to home video and word of mouth. While it did reasonably well at the box office, it wasn't until it hit VHS and later DVD and streaming platforms that it found a dedicated audience. Today it's often quoted, referenced, and recommended not just for entertainment, but as an example of how to do courtroom storytelling properly. One reason the film continues to be discussed is due to a now widely noted blooper involving Tomai's character. In a pivotal courtroom scene, Mona Lisa explains the workings of a car's differential with great confidence, using hand gestures to demonstrate. While her delivery was passionate and persuasive, a closer look reveals a mismatch between what she's saying and what she's showing. It's a small moment, and one that passed unnoticed by most viewers, and even the production team at the time. But over the years, this blooper has become a point of fascination, demonstrating how a performance can still be powerful and convincing, even if it's not technically correct. Rather than undermining the scene, this mistake adds to the film's charm. It's a reminder that filmmaking is a human process full of imperfections, and that even award-winning performances aren't immune to a little slip here and there. In fact, this blooper has become a talking point among fans and film enthusiasts, showing how something as minor as a mismatched gesture can become part of a movie's legacy. As audiences continue to revisit My Cousin Vinny, both for entertainment and analysis, it becomes clear that the film's success lies not in flashy effects or high drama, but in its commitment to character, story, and a grounded sense of humor. It's a film that respects its audience, never talking down or resorting to cheap gags, and instead trusts in the strength of its script and the talent of its cast. Jonathan Lynn, the director, brought more than just technical expertise to the project. Born in 1943 in Bath, England, Lynn had a long and varied career before taking on My Cousin Vinny. He studied law at Cambridge, which may come as a surprise to those who know him primarily for his work in British comedy, but that legal background would end up being extremely useful in crafting the courtroom scenes that became such a defining part of the film. Before moving into directing, Lynn had already established himself as a talented writer and actor in the UK. He was one of the minds behind the hugely successful British TV series Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, both of which dealt with political themes using sharp wit and layered storytelling. That experience in combining humor with serious subject matter carried over directly into My Cousin Vinny, where the legal stakes are real, but the tone stays light and engaging. When Lynn came on board as director, the script was already written by Dale Lorna. Lorna had his own strong ideas about how the story should be told, Inspired by a conversation with a law student preparing for the bar exam, Lorna began to explore the idea of a lawyer who keeps failing to pass the exam, but eventually gets a chance to prove himself in court. From that simple what-if scenario, he built a story that would eventually become My Cousin Vinny. Lorna was particularly interested in how the American legal system works, especially when it comes to misunderstandings, wrongful accusations, and the kind of odd legal loopholes that can make or break a case. In the early stages of developing the script, he spent time traveling through the southern United States to get a feel for the region. He listened to locals, observed courtroom proceedings, and tried to capture the small details that would make the story feel authentic. Everything from the dialogue to the food references was influenced by his first-hand experiences. One example of this research in action is the now famous grits scene in the film. In it, Vinny questions how long it takes to cook grits, using the answer to discredit a witness's timeline. It's a small but clever moment that reflects not just legal strategy but cultural knowledge. According to Lorna, that detail came directly from a real conversation he had while traveling in the South. These seemingly minor touches helped make the film feel grounded, even as the characters and events leaned into comedy. Once the script was complete, the next major challenge was casting. Finding the right actor to play Vinny was crucial. The character needed to be brash but likable, rough around the edges but clever. Dale Lorna originally wanted Robert De Niro for the role, believing that De Niro could bring both intensity and surprising comedic timing. But the studio had doubts. De Niro, despite his legendary status, was better known for dramatic roles, and there were concerns about whether he could carry a light-hearted legal comedy. Other names considered included Danny DeVito, Peter Falk, Jim Belushi, and even Andrew Dice Clay. Each of them brought a different kind of energy, but none quite matched what the filmmakers were looking for. That's when Jonathan Lynn turned his attention to Joe Pesci. At the time, Pesci was riding high from his performances in Goodfellas and Casino, both directed by Martin Scorsese. He was known for his intensity and unpredictability on screen. Despite the apparent mismatch, Pesci wasn't an obvious choice for a comedic lead. Lynn saw potential. He believed Pesci's background and natural charisma could work perfectly for a street-smart lawyer from Brooklyn. Once cast, Pesci took the role seriously. He drew on people he knew from his own life, incorporating their quirks, habits, and mannerisms into Vinny. The result was a character who felt real, if a bit larger than life, and it's hard to imagine anyone else pulling off the role in the same way. The casting process didn't end there. The role of Mona Lisa Vito, Vinny's fiancée, presented its own set of challenges. Lorraine Bracco and Carol Davis were both considered for the part, but ultimately turned it down. That left the door open for Marissa Tomei, an actress who at the time was relatively unknown compared to some of the others in contention. Director Jonathan Lynn had seen Tomei perform in a small role on a different film set and was impressed with her confidence and screen presence. He pushed for her to be cast, despite some pushback from the studio, which had doubts about her experience. Tomei auditioned for the role and won it outright. Her take on Mona Lisa Vito was fresh, energetic, and completely original. She didn't just play a girlfriend character, she brought depth, intelligence, and humor to every scene. Her chemistry with Pesci was immediate and believable, and their dynamic became one of the highlights of the film. The risk paid off in a big way, leading to her surprise win at the Oscars, a moment that some questioned at the time, but which has since been widely vindicated. Other casting decisions reflected a commitment to both authenticity and practicality. For the roles of Billy and Stanley, the two young men on trial, big names like Ben Stiller and Will Smith were considered, but casting them would have introduced different complexities, including concerns around race and representation. The studio ultimately chose Ralph Macchio and Mitchell Whitfield, actors who could bring a grounded realism to the roles without drawing too much attention away from the central story. Throughout the production process, Jonathan Lynn's legal background helped maintain a balance between comedy and accuracy. He understood how courtroom procedure works and made sure the film stayed within believable boundaries. There were times when the studio pushed for more dramatic elements, like giving Vinny a learning disability to explain his repeated failures on the bar exam. But Lin resisted these changes. He wanted the story to focus on Vinny's perseverance and street-smart intelligence rather than turning the character into a stereotype. Lin's insistence on authenticity didn't just influence character development, it also affected how scenes were shot and edited. One example comes from a now infamous blooper that took place during Mona Lisa's testimony about car mechanics. The scene was so convincing that it wasn't until years later that viewers noticed her hand gestures didn't actually match the technical explanation she was giving. It was a simple continuity error, but it passed through the editing process unnoticed. That moment, while unintended, has since become a beloved detail among fans, reinforcing the idea that even in a tightly controlled production, human error can add charm. As the film neared completion, there was no certainty it would succeed. It wasn't built around action sequences or visual effects. It didn't rely on traditional Hollywood tropes. Instead, My Cousin Vinny leaned on character development, strong writing, and a unique balance of tone. What the filmmakers didn't anticipate was how these qualities would resonate with audiences long after the film left theaters. Long after the film left theaters. The most talked about mistake involves Marisa Tomei's character, Mona Lisa Vito, during a courtroom scene that is central to the plot. In this scene, Mona Lisa is called to the witness stand to provide expert testimony about the mechanics of a car's differential. This testimony is a turning point in the trial and is delivered with confidence, humor, and memorable flair. Mona Lisa's explanation is both engaging and informative, helping Vinny dismantle the prosecution's case by revealing a key inconsistency involving tire tracks. However, for all the energy and precision in Tomei's performance, a closer inspection of the scene reveals something slightly off. While she talks about the inner workings of the differential, her hand gestures don't quite match the technical explanation she's giving. To a casual viewer, this is hardly noticeable, but for car enthusiasts and mechanically inclined fans, the mismatch became a point of curiosity. It wasn't a glaring error, but rather a subtle inconsistency that most likely went unnoticed during filming and editing. For years, it was simply accepted as part of the performance, until a few eagle-eyed viewers brought it to wider attention. What makes this particular blooper so fascinating is how well it blends into the scene. Tomei's delivery is so confident that the audience believes her, even if the visual demonstration doesn't completely align with what she's describing. The blooper has since become a kind of in-joke among fans and film analysts, an example of how strong acting can carry a moment even when the technical details aren't perfect. It also serves as a reminder that in the world of film, small imperfections can often go unnoticed or be forgiven when the emotional or narrative delivery hits the mark. This was not the only blooper that slipped through the cracks. There are several smaller mistakes sprinkled throughout the movie, each adding to the film's growing reputation for being both polished and imperfect in all the right ways. For instance, at one point in the film, a background extra appears to travel between two locations impossibly fast. The character is seen in the courtroom in one scene, and then at a barbecue joint moments later, despite the fact that no such transition would be logically possible. It's a continuity error that most viewers wouldn't notice unless they were paying very close attention. But for those who do spot it, it adds an extra bit of amusement to the viewing experience. Another subtle error involves Mona Lisa's nail polish. Over the course of a few scenes, the color of her nails changes, even though the events are supposed to take place within a very short period of time. It's not a major mistake, but it's the kind of thing that continuity teams usually try to catch. In this case, the change was overlooked, but it's since been pointed out by fans who enjoy picking apart these kinds of cinematic inconsistencies. There's also the curious case of Vinny's car. At one point, the Cadillac he's driving mysteriously loses its branding. The Cadillac emblem, clearly visible in earlier scenes, seems to disappear in a later shot. Whether this was due to a swap in vehicles, an editing oversight, or a change made during production isn't entirely clear, but it's yet another example of a small detail that became part of the film's larger story over time. In another moment that has amused dedicated viewers, one of the extras in the courtroom appears to exit the room, only to reappear again moments later in the same seat. It's a simple editing mistake, probably due to the way different takes were stitched together in post-production. Still, for those who catch it, the error feels almost like a hidden joke, an unintentional nod to the idea that even the best movies have their flaws. Perhaps what makes these bloopers so enjoyable is that they feel harmless. None of them disrupt the flow of the story or distract from the main performances. Instead, they act as little reminders that filmmaking is a collaborative and sometimes chaotic process. With so many moving parts, it's almost impossible to catch every detail. Even with a director like Jonathan Lynn, known for his precision and structured approach, the occasional oversight was bound to happen. In a strange way, these errors have humanized the film, offering a glimpse behind the polished final product. Director Jonathan Lynn himself has commented on the pressures of getting each scene right, especially given the balance the film tries to maintain between comedy and courtroom drama. His experience studying law at Cambridge helped ensure that the legal content was handled with care. Lawyers and judges have praised the film for its procedural accuracy, and it's even been used in law school classrooms. But that focus on legal detail didn't mean every frame would be free from human error. What's particularly interesting is how some of the film's bloopers have gained a life of their own in popular culture. Much like the famous Stormtrooper head bump in Star Wars, or the widely used Wilhelm scream sound effect, the My Cousin Vinny bloopers have become small but memorable parts of its identity. They're often brought up in online discussions, film trivia lists, and fan forums. Rather than being points of criticism, they've become part of what makes the film memorable. Bloopers like these also spark broader conversations about the nature of filmmaking. For many viewers, discovering a blooper offers a kind of satisfaction, proof that even professionals can make mistakes. In today's media landscape, where behind-the-scenes content is almost as popular as the films themselves, these moments provide valuable insight into the production process. They show that perfection isn't always the goal, and that authenticity often comes from a willingness to embrace the unpredictable. Over time, bloopers have evolved from being hidden embarrassments to celebrated parts of the movie experience. In fact, many films now include outtakes as bonus features, acknowledging that audiences enjoy seeing the lighter side of production. While My Cousin Vinny doesn't have a blooper reel in the traditional sense, fans have created their own by identifying and sharing these small errors. This ongoing conversation around the film has helped keep it in the public eye, even decades after its release. The popularity of these bloopers also reinforces the film's unique place in the comedy genre. It's a rare kind of film that can be both funny and accurate, both polished and imperfect. The small mistakes don't detract from its value. If anything, they enhance it. They make the characters and situations feel more real, more grounded, and more relatable. In a courtroom comedy built around misunderstandings, miscommunication, and flawed characters, a few filmmaking flaws seem perfectly fitting. For fans, revisiting the film with fresh eyes often means looking for details they missed the first time. And for new viewers, learning about these bloopers in advance can add an extra layer of enjoyment. There's something endearing about spotting a continuity error or recognizing a repeated extra, like being in on a secret shared among devoted fans. As discussions around My Cousin Vinny continue to grow, especially in online spaces, these bloopers remain a popular topic. They've become part of the film's legacy, not as faults to be corrected, but as features to be celebrated. In a way, they represent the essence of what makes the film special. A mix of smart writing, great performances, and just the right amount of human error, to remind us that even in a courtroom setting, things don't always go according to plan. One of the most remarkable developments in the film's legacy is its standing within the legal community. Despite being a fictional comedy, My Cousin Vinny has earned respect for its surprisingly accurate depiction of courtroom procedure. Judges, lawyers, and professors have praised the film for its adherence to legal process, and many law schools across the United States now include the film in their curriculum. It is often used as a teaching tool to illustrate points of trial procedure, cross-examination technique, and the proper use of expert witnesses. Institutions like the University of Arizona and Oklahoma State University have formally incorporated the movie into course materials, using it to explain aspects of criminal defense and legal ethics. Even more notably, the American Bar Association has recognized the film as one of the best law movies of all time, placing it alongside classics such as To Kill a Mockingbird and 12 Angry Men. That's no small feat for a comedy starring a fast-talking, unconventional lawyer from Brooklyn. This legal credibility is not accidental. Director Jonathan Lynn, who studied law at Cambridge, worked hard to ensure that the legal scenes in the film were rooted in reality. He aimed for authenticity without sacrificing entertainment value, and that balance has helped the film endure. Screenwriter Deo Lorna also researched legal procedures extensively before writing the script, aiming to craft a story that felt believable even when the characters were delivering jokes. The courtroom scenes work so well not because they're played entirely for laughs, but because they respect the rules of the legal system, even when bending them slightly for effect. One interesting behind-the-scenes decision that reflects the filmmaker's attention to character and realism was the removal of a subplot involving Vinny's dyslexia. In early drafts of the script, Vinny's repeated failure to pass the bar exam was explained by a learning difficulty. While this would have added another layer of complexity to his character, director Jonathan Lynn chose to remove it. He believed it would distract from the central narrative and possibly risk turning Vinny into a caricature. Instead, the story focused on Vinny's resilience, instincts, and street smarts, qualities that ultimately helped him win the case. This decision was not without controversy. Deo Lorna has expressed disappointment that the dyslexia angle was dropped, feeling it removed a key part of Vinny's backstory. According to Lorna, Vinny's character risked being misunderstood as simply incompetent rather than someone overcoming a real obstacle. Still, the final version of the film presents Vinny as a flawed but determined character, which resonated with audiences in a way that felt both entertaining and sincere. Beyond its influence in academic and professional circles, My Cousin Vinny has also found a second life in pop culture. The resurfacing of bloopers, especially the now famous courtroom scene with Marisa Tomei, sparked a new wave of interest among fans and casual viewers alike. This renewed attention has brought the film back into public discussion, especially in online communities, where film analysis and fan theories thrive. Fans have reacted with curiosity and amusement to the discovery of errors and continuity slips. Rather than criticizing these moments, many have embraced them as part of the film's charm. Online forums and video platforms are full of commentary and breakdowns, with fans pointing out minor mistakes, theorizing about their origins, and celebrating the authenticity they bring to the final product. For a film that was already considered quotable and endlessly rewatchable, these extra layers of discovery have only added to the fun. The attention has also reignited appreciation for the film's standout performances. Marisa Tomei's portrayal of Mona Lisa Vito, once a surprising Oscar win, is now viewed as a masterclass in comedic timing and character work. Her ability to shift from comic relief to crucial expert witness remains one of the film's most memorable elements. Joe Pesci's performance as Vinny Gambini has also been re-evaluated, not just as a humorous role, but as one that balances absurdity with genuine heart and intelligence. The interaction between Tomei and Pesci, both in character and in performance style, is frequently mentioned as one of the film's strongest aspects. Their on-screen chemistry brings warmth to a movie that could have easily been dominated by legal jargon and courtroom tension. Instead, the relationship grounds the story in something more personal, giving audiences a reason to care beyond the outcome of the trial. The renewed interest in the film has even extended to younger audiences, many of whom were not around when the movie first came out. Streaming services and social media have helped introduce My Cousin Vinny to a new generation, and the response has been largely positive. What stands out is that the humor still holds up, the pacing still feels fresh, and the legal content remains surprisingly relevant. Some have even suggested that the film's imperfections, its bloopers, continuity errors, and small production quirks, are part of what make it so appealing. In a media landscape where many films are highly polished and sometimes overly produced, My Cousin Vinny offers a reminder that storytelling can be just as effective when it's a little rough around the edges. The human element, the slight missteps, and the genuine performances are what make the film feel real and relatable. In the broader context of film history, My Cousin Vinny demonstrates how a movie can evolve in public perception over time. What begins as a modest comedy can, with the right mix of talent, authenticity, and audience engagement, become a lasting piece of cultural conversation. It shows that films don't need to be grand or serious to make a meaningful impact. Sometimes all it takes is a well-crafted script, a few memorable characters, and a story that respects the intelligence of its viewers. There's also something to be said for the way the film continues to generate new discussions, from debates about legal realism to analyses of character development and directorial choices. My Cousin Vinny remains fertile ground for both casual viewers and film scholars. Each new discovery, whether it's a hidden blooper or a deeper interpretation of a scene, adds to its growing legacy. In the end, what has kept My Cousin Vinny in the spotlight isn't just the jokes or the memorable quotes. It's the way the film invites viewers to connect with its characters, its setting, and even its mistakes. It feels honest in a way that many comedies don't. It treats the legal system with a level of seriousness while still finding humor in its complexity. And most of all, it embraces the idea that imperfection is not something to hide, but something that can make a film even more endearing. As new audiences continue to discover and revisit My Cousin Vinny, it's likely that more hidden moments and behind-the-scenes stories will come to light. And that's part of the fun. The film has become more than just a piece of entertainment. It's a living document of creative choices, happy accidents, and lasting performances. It's a reminder that storytelling, at its best, is about more than perfection. It's about connection, and My Cousin Vinny continues to connect in ways that are both expected and surprising.